Okay, well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us live and or listening in later on. This is Azeem Nazir's ServiceNow Journey, February 23rd, 2024. Again, my name is Chris Shu, and I'm known as the ServiceNow Magician. And you can look at this, take a screenshot if you want, and we're going to move into the meat and the potatoes of what we're doing today. So, first up, I'd like to just recap the podcast's purpose as it relates to Azeem. So, Azeem is looking to move from his current ServiceNow administrative job and become a ServiceNow developer. So, we're going to review what skills he needs, what resume updates he is going to need, and then also how to do these different types of interviews and how to target different organizations. This doesn't mean that he's unhappy. This doesn't mean that he wants to leave an organization. In fact, he wants to probably stay where he's at and advance within the organization. So the podcast's purpose is to help someone get to that next step in their career journey, not necessarily leave and go somewhere else. That brings us up to me learning a bit about hosting this type of podcast, in that I should have advised Azeem at the beginning to talk to his manager about his journey about being on the podcast, so that we could have an open communication and a clear dialogue on what the podcast's purpose was, what the outcomes we're looking to achieve are, and what our next steps are, and how Azeem could work with his or her manager, and you could work with your manager to get to that next step in your ServiceNow career journey. So, with that all said, we have a very special guest today, Robert Fedoruk, who's known as the Duke of ServiceNow, podcast host extraordinaire. CJ and the Duke is a much better podcast than this one, so definitely tune in and listen to that. It's listen only, so it's automatically more accessible. Great job on it. I've loved some of the interviews that they've had as well. Maybe hoping to be a guest one day. And also, he's known as the Duke and has been heavily involved in the ServiceNow space, especially all over LinkedIn. And he's a resume specialist. So that's why we've brought him on to do this. Now, his resume reviews are paid, and they do have a cost. And after going through one earlier this week with someone else who's not part of the podcast process, I can tell you that it is incredibly worth it. So much so that I want to pay for one for myself to revamp my CMA one, and that is going to
Wow.
come. So we're going to talk about that as well later, Robert, offline. But definitely, you will get all the value and more out of having him review your resume, even if at any level. So definitely want to make sure that we call that out. And welcome and thank you for being here, Robert. So with that said, I'm gonna hand kind of the reins over. I'm gonna give Robert, you'll be able to share your screen, and we're gonna dive right in to Azeem's resume, because we only have another 52 minutes and some seconds to get through all of this, and there's gonna be a
Yeah.
ton of content to go
Let's
through.
do it.
Stop my share. Thank you again all for joining. I'll monitor the meeting chat. Don't worry, any of that kind of stuff. We don't really field questions as much, so you
Sure.
can ask, but we may not answer, and we want to make sure that we focus on what we're doing here. So okay, so go ahead and share, Robert.
Just before I do, I want to just start with a little bit of ground setting. Um, when you're okay, so the keys to getting anything that you want professionally, there's really only two levers that you can control. First, there is the lever of the hard skills, right? I want to be an accountant. I had better darn well know how to be one, right? So it's the hard skills of can you actually manipulate the objects to get us value? Okay. The second lever is our ability to transmit ideas about our hard skills. Okay. Or even the value propositions that we can bring. And we know that the second lever is every bit as important as the first, because every single day, all around the world, people see people who can't do but can talk get the positions that they want. So you can't separate the two. The talking bit, the transmission of ideas, is absolutely just as important as having the hard skills. We've all seen people who were brilliant hard technicians, but can't get advancement because they don't know how to talk about their value propositions. Okay. So that's the kind of the genesis of all of my resume reviews is you have to be able to talk plus demonstrate that you have the hard skills. So let me just go to my share screen here.
Sure. And as you do that, Azeem works for the Canadian federal government. So anybody that's
Yep.
looking to move into the Canadian federal government space, know that there's what they have what's called the grid. So Azeem's resume focus review today won't cover as much of that because in
Right.
some cases the resume needs to be 6, 7 pages long to meet all the items that they're looking for in the grid. However, we're going to use this, that you can use what we're going to learn here to address and scale it to meet
Mm-hmm.
this grid in that specific use case. Okay, thank you.
Is this readable? Like, I don't know how it looks on the shared screen. Okay. Yeah, good point on that, Chris. There's two types of resume reviews. I just don't know enough to talk about. Number one is government resumes, and number two is optimizing a resume for large scale applicant tracking mechanisms. I don't think there's a person on earth that actually knows how to do that. My resume reviews are very tailored to the idea that a person is going to read this thing. Okay. All right. So let's get started. The first thing you should know is who I would be as a resume reader. Okay. So I am somebody who has a position open. I need to hire somebody to do this ServiceNow stuff for me. Okay. I have other stuff to do. I want to be able to drop somebody in and they take care of it. Right. So it's about showing what kind of problems you can solve and at what scale is must be the clearest thing for me. The other thing about me is that I'm a human being. I get tired. I got other things in my mind. I'm easily distractible. And so there is zero guarantee that I'm going to get to the end of your resume. As a matter of fact, I would bank on it. So it's critically important that we treat our resumes as a highlight reel. I don't know if there's any fight fans in the audience, UFC, boxing, but the resume has got to be a highlight reel. When they were promoting Mike Tyson fights, they weren't showing Mike Tyson eating a balanced breakfast. They weren't showing Mike Tyson waking up at 4 a.m. to go for a run. They were showing Mike Tyson like doing that mean Mike Tyson stare down. They were showing him knocking people's jaws off. That's what you got to think. You got to equate that to your world. What are the knockout punches that I have delivered? And I might only get a page of attention because I have a stack of other resumes here that I also got to get through and first guarantee is I'm not reading past 2 pages ever, 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 ever. And the second guarantee is I may not make it, the fundamental truth is I read until I decide or until I get bored. If I get bored, it's the maybe pile at best. If I decide, I can decide either two ways. Either decide one, to give this person an interview, or decide two, don't give this person an interview. Got it? Okay. So there's a few downstream consequences of the highlight reel of the lack of human, like the finite amount of human attention. And so one of these downstream consequences is that verticality is your enemy, right? I want to make sure that you get the maximum amount of information in the shortest amount of time. And so anything that makes me drop down farther is basically like one more drop of attention that's gone. So I take out any distractions, these lines, the height of this, I take it out. So the other thing I would do here is I'd put some kind of aspirational title, right? So what is it that you want to do? You want to be like known as the ServiceNow expert, ServiceNow admin, ServiceNow architect, ServiceNow whatever. Okay. Now, no matter who sees your resume, the first thing they know about you is what you're gunning for. Okay. How do we even know your resume is in the right pile? I've seen that all kinds of places. Like call up a recruiter. Hey, send me 5 resumes about ServiceNow. Sure. I get 5 resumes about ServiceNow and a 6th resume about Azure. I didn't know that the person wanted to be a ServiceNow person. I was like, this is an Azure person. Toss it. Okay. This you can put on one line, just saves the readability. And remember, it just gives you more room to get those knockout punches on the first page. The second downstream consequence is, oh, sorry, there's another note I have here. You should always keep in mind your resume is what you can do plus what you want to do. That's one of the important reasons we have an aspirational title. Okay, another posture I take is that words are friends when they're few, but they're foes when they're many. And every single word I read is a bit of processing power that's taken out of my mind, right? One more drop of attention that's gone. So use less words when possible, use simpler words when possible. So instead of summary of qualifications, summary. Yeah. Now, these skill grids, these one-worders, I know it's pretty controversial. There's a lot of conflicting advice on it. I'm clearly in the camp of if you invoke the label, does not invoke my imagination. So if I tell you soap making, you're like, so what? What about soap making? But if I tell you that this soap is sudsy and luxurious, and I make it for the same cost as the stuff you could buy at the grocery store, now it invokes your imagination. Yeah. So you can use these keywords inside your experience, and it's way more effective there. Because again, like I'll do ServiceNow GRC. Now, what do you know about me in ServiceNow GRC? All you know is that I have invoked the words, but you have no idea if I've done it. And if I have done it, was I successful at it? Did I get it? The plague of our ecosystem is people who do but don't understand, right? Okay, so that's that. Okay, there's also a concept. So this is on. There's I link this to the concept of show, don't tell. Keywords are showing, right, or are telling, but showing is something completely different. Like if you read up a little bit about how writers write, they don't say Bob was sad. They were like, Bob's mood was dark as the clouds that were hanging over his house and the pouring rain and blah. Show, don't tell. Okay. So now we're getting into the real summary. A bullet point summary isn't bad. I prefer just kind of like a short paragraph on you, what you can do and what you want to do. Okay. And it should be specific to the large scale outcomes that you have provided. This is kind of like a summary of activities you've performed with experience that you have, but they're not listed as experiences, right? They're listed as kind of like experience with agile methodologies, but that like, so what? You understand? So a few tips here is to be careful what you describe. So you're an ITSM professional, but you're a dynamic transformational one. What does that mean? What does dynamic and transformational mean? They are those hot business keywords that people love to put in their resume, but they don't, like, in my imagination is no clear vision of what's happening. Okay. And then, like, again, because remember, every single word is one more drop of attention gone. So it's like more than 18 years experience in team development, program project management, incident problem change, and release management. Would you say that team development was the very most important thing that you've done in your career as it pertains to your trajectory with ServiceNow?
Sorry, I think you froze there a little bit for me. If you could repeat that just for the recording, that'd be great.
Sure.
Thanks.
Take it from where?
The team development.
Yes. Would you say that team development was the single most important thing to your trajectory on ServiceNow? And probably not, right? It was just the first thing that came to mind. But like, you got to imagine if all I had was your summary, would you take you, right? So what you should have here is basically like your some kind of quick snapshot summary of your ServiceNow experience, with the type and scale of problems that you've solved, and how any of your other background makes you gives you a competitive advantage, an unfair advantage. You understand? Now, I think there's like a mindset that we adopt, because there's like there are far and away more capable people in the ServiceNow, more exciting and capable people in the ServiceNow ecosystem than there are resumes that reflect that. Okay. And so you really have to change your mindset on this again to be the highlight reel, to be the Mike Tyson knockout punch versus describing activities that you have performed. I'm trying to think of a good example of this. Um, so like you have a ton of ServiceNow certifications, way more so than average, right? So I would literally put like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'd load those up in my summary. I would say, ServiceNow system admin with X years experience and 7 mainline implementation certs and an application developer on top of being an ITIL 4 master. My MBA and my master's of finance also gives me unique insights into the financial outcomes of everything that we do on ServiceNow. You see, already we're building a more exciting picture of like, oh man, not only somebody who knows how to make the parts move, but somebody who can understand like the real business impact behind this stuff. You understand? Any questions on that so far? So I don't write these for people, but I basically, because I don't know your story, right? But take your story. Also, a mindset that helps is like pretend it's just the 3 of us and we're out for a nice meal. Maybe we've got like 1 or 2 libations going. We're having a great time, and we're talking about all the great things we've done in our ServiceNow career. What would you say to us? Write that down, okay? Then polish that up as you need to, because that's what I would want to read as somebody who's like, who's going to solve my ServiceNow problems? Who's going to solve my ServiceNow problems? Somebody who comes in and says, here's a list of modules that I've touched, or somebody that comes in and says, look, man, I've been there. Like, you want to save $1 million with vulnerability management? I can do that for you. Holy cow. You understand me. Take care of this. Okay. So there's no questions. I'll just go from there. All right. This is I call these whammies. Okay. So basically a collection of nouns or a collection of verbs that are all in the same family. And the intent is I'm going to load this up with nuance so you get a broader view of what I do. But you're really just depleting my attention across this. So pick the highest value noun and verb, and singular if possible. What was the thing that you did that was awesome? And I guarantee you, I absolutely 1000% guarantee you it wasn't collaboration. Collaboration, facilitation, working with, those are all things that all human beings do in every single context, except for, like, lone wolves that live out in the mountains somewhere prepping for the end of the world. Those are the people who don't collaborate. Everybody else collaborates. It's just natural. It's expected. Okay. So going down to our professional experience, again, words are the enemy. You can say experience, not professional experience. De-wordify everything that you can, because every word is a drop of my attention. I try and get these things into one line and get these extra lines out, because remember, verticality is the enemy. If I can get more stuff on one page, do it. So use like short form if you have to, like SR instead of senior. So you could even do like senior program manager, right? You may be able to squeeze it all into one. You know what I mean? And nobody's like doing OCD check-ins, right? They're not calling your boss and saying, was his exact title a senior program delivery manager or a senior manager, right? You just got to get them the idea. Okay. So now we're into the meat and potatoes of the experience. And there's 2 concepts that I feel helps people build way better stories of their experience. Number 1 is a model I made called the hierarchy of interest. Okay. Accomplishments are always more interesting than achievements. Or sorry, accomplishments are more interesting than activities. I totally spelled this wrong. Okay. Accomplishments are always more interesting than activities. And activities are always more interesting than responsibilities. And truthfully, honestly, like rule of the jungle here, nobody actually cares about responsibilities. We all know people who are responsible for their children, except they're the most irresponsible people in the world. Responsibility is an expectation. You might not live up to it, right? So I don't care what you were responsible for. I want to know what you accomplished. Okay. And how do I know if I've written an accomplishment versus an activity versus a responsibility? Well, there's a formula for that too. This is not Robert Fedoruk's formula. This is just, I found it like 18 different places on the internet. XYZ protocol. By doing X, I achieved Y as measured by Z. There's like a dime a dozen these models are, but I like the XYZ because it's 3 variables. What did I do? What did it achieve? But specifically, how much of that did I achieve? Right? Don't give me the whole like increased operational efficiencies. Like, what does that tell me? What made people stand up and say, God, I'm glad we hired this person to do that. Right? So you're by writing an XYZ protocol, you will have much more compelling arguments in your bullet points as to why you are the sure choice for this next thing. And I got to imagine with all those certs, right, and all your years of experience at these places, that you have got some of those. Okay. But I will say from this point onward, like every bullet point is just me reiterating it's got to be an XYZ, it's got to be an achievement, because you're really listing activities, and kind of worse than that, they are activities in the abstract. And I'm still trying to find out why people are this way, because if it's you and me and Chris at Knowledge hanging out, happy to be there, out come the dragon slaying stories, right? I kicked this problem's ass and everybody was so happy. And look, I'm speaking at the next Knowledge conference and everybody wants to know how I did this. But when it comes to resumes, did stuff with things, right? I built as per requirement. It's almost like, I don't know if it's a shame of showing off thing. Like I have to minimize and make myself diminutive and polite. But no, the resume reader is dying for the highlight reel. They are begging you to be the last resume they have to read. And so wow them. Boast. Don't lie, boast. Okay? So if you were responsible for the project management of ServiceNow, including budget, licensing, project costs, delivery times, how would I know that you were good at that and not terrible at that? Because both people can write this line the exact same way. So you tell me, how do I know you, or convince me that I want you on this and not a PM I got off of Fiverr?
Yeah. So Azeem, how would you communicate that then? You're on mute, but you have to. Yeah, sorry. Oh, is it not gonna?
I think.
I don't even see.
Are you muting all the other audience members?
Yeah, sorry. Let's see if I can. Okay, try it.
Okay, now I can
There we
unmute.
go.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
was not able to unmute.
My bad. I'm still new to Zoom. More of a Teams guy. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I think like that's to relate to what you said, X, Y, Z, like up to Z, like up to how degree I was successful in implementing. So I have to showcase, I guess. This does not say anything like now I'm
Correct.
So let's get
correct.
specific with this one line. So
Yep.
how would you change responsible for project management, including budget, into I did the, the XYZ. So by managing a project effectively, you achieved. So let's try that. We're going to workshop it, of course, and all good writing is based off of extensive rewriting. So this is not going to be your final thing, but I want to kind of run through an exercise with you once and get, Robert's stamp of approval, and then you can kind of scale it to other items. So go ahead.
So I would say like successfully implemented a ServiceNow project at OSFI within the budget uh, and within the timeline and met the stakeholder expectation.
Okay,
So some
so that's a good start. So
Yep.
what is the by doing? So what's the X? So by doing what?
Here,
That's
let
the
me let me
how part. Go ahead.
let me
Sorry.
read you an example from my
Sure.
resume, and then we'll start from that position. So
Okay.
you're still like 2 or 3 layers of abstraction backwards, right? And I would imagine it more like have you used each of your certs? Okay, so if you've used each of those certs, you have been on a project that delivered some kind of outcome associated with those process areas. And that's the thing that's going to be exciting. Okay, because I could go on Fiverr and find PMs who have successfully reached the objectives in the abstract. What I can't find is somebody who delivered like $100,000 of the license savings because we executed this $250,000 project on time, on budget, right? So I'm gonna get to, you guys are still only seeing my Word doc, right?
Yep.
yeah, we're still seeing.
Okay, I'm not gonna show my screen, this resume. I'm just gonna
No,
read from it. Okay, so one of the ServiceNow projects that put me on the map could be described as I manage cost, schedule, scope, and resources to deliver like what I was told under the parameters that I was given. Okay, how about this? Secured $300,000 funding for a re-architecture project in a tight year. Established alliances with unrelated stakeholders, financial shared services center, corporate accounting, etc., to back the project. Led a team of 5 developers as principal architect, replacing current solutions with service-focused architecture on time, on budget, 0 downtime at cutover.
boom. Oh, sorry. Did he mute himself again? Sorry. Go ahead. There you go.
Yeah, so just like what Robert you were saying, it just highlighted that I saved about 200,000 training cost in ServiceNow when we had the issue with acquiring funding for the training budget, and
Mm-hmm.
then we only had 3 weeks left. So I I prepared the user guideline, and uh, me and my colleague, we actually went ahead and we did 25 training session across the organization, and we did the in-house training, and we saved about 200,000 in training
So
budget.
there you go. You've got it. Now put it into that order. So
Yep.
by doing this, you achieved that, and we measured it by all of these other
Yep.
items.
Just
And
outside your resume, put it on a notepad, just write down that time Buddy and I did that thing that saved us 200. As long as it takes you to describe it, you can always de-wordify it, but get it down on paper. And
Yeah.
those are the highlight reel. Those are the knockout punches
Yeah.
that I would be dying to read, because right now I know that one of the things I can do with you immediately is put you on whatever part of my ServiceNow implementation is lacking user adoption. Go figure it out, Azeem. Figure it out. Get my people up to speed. And you did it for this much money before. I got exactly. You see what I mean? Like, I just know exactly the type, scale of the thing that you have solved and how well you solved it. Right. So that, I just double down on that. That's exactly the level that you want to get to. Abstraction, right? You don't want to abstract too far, because then it's just
fluff, really.
it's like it's just saying the words. It's chanting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, I
In
want
my
to meet
previous,
with you, and I want to talk about this training and that 200 grand, and I want to explore it further. So
Yep.
you have given me some specific interest that is making me want to take action amongst many other resumes that do this exact other thing.
You
Guilty
could
as well on mine.
a mental model I use is what if you were like, what if somebody says, I want the CEO of Azeem's life? That's who I want. Okay. Now think about how a CEO would present themselves to a potential employer. Okay. Now it's the difference between, use these financial tools to present quarterly reports to the board, right? Or I removed this much expense from the bottom from the I reduced operational expenses by 35% or by $20 million or by whatever. They're dying to get to the numbers that shows I wasn't just some activity performer. I was somebody who actually moved the bottom needle, who adjusted the bottom line. Why are you going to pay me $25 million as a CEO? Because I moved the bottom line by $50 million. Right? So get to the numbers as fast as you can. The best numbers are dollars, percentages, and time.
Great.
And similar to that, then I think in my previous company, when I achieved my ITIL expert, at that time it was V3 version of ITIL, and I wanted to go for ITIL master certification. So my CIO, he says, you have those certification which let you do the job, so why should I pay for that? So at that time, I asked him, if I do the ITIL master certification, I can become an ITIL trainer. And every year we send about 50 people from our company to do ITIL foundation training. And I told him I can save that cost. So over my period of like 6, 7 years staying after ITIL trainer, I saved about $500,000 cost just for ITIL training to the organization.
There you go. For me right now in this moment, it's a little bit like it's hard to understand the distance between did the training saved X million dollars. Just get that down and articulate it. But that's exactly the type of bullet points you want on here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's also a great business case.
Yeah, exactly. Like the goal is to basically get so as these things start coming into the equation, Azeem, that's how you build a glorious summary, right? Because you could basically say, oh, a couple 100,000 here, a few 100,000 here, $1 million there, and then all of a sudden on your summary, it's like I have provided millions of dollars worth of process optimization, right? I have reduced millions of dollars of risk. Well, how do you know millions? Well, just add up the outcomes.
Yeah.
So you understand now, like the CEO of your life, would they say it this way, or would they get right down to some kind of dollars, percentages, time? Okay, so it's going to sound a little bit broken recordish from here on in, but we'll just highlight the stuff that's like extremely low value. Okay, so staying up to date with ServiceNow, like just think about like, have you ever gone to a mechanic, get your car repaired? Did you ask them when the last time they recertified their mechanic's license? Or your barber? Like barbers in Chicago need to have a very specific state license or they can't do barbering ever, right? The police will come to your place. But I don't go into my barber shop and say, hey, when was the last time you got your paperwork? It's just, it's the expectation of your expertise is that you keep up. You don't have to tell me. That's kind of like, that's how the sausage is made. I don't want to know how the sausage, I just want to eat the sausage. Okay.
But could that also then be turned into like a thought leadership opportunity? So by staying up to date with ServiceNow enhancements and updates to the platform, I am able to effectively recommend strategic direction for the whole process of what we're going to implement next, or how are we going to do it from technical governance.
I would say no, Chris, because you're one step away from the good stuff.
One step away.
Okay. So it's basically like, okay, think of this is actually a really good point though, Chris. It's like if you're going to use the word strategy, you better come with the artillery.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're going to say strategy once, I expect to see bottom line. Like, how did the bottom line move? You change the strategy of the organization. okay, was that cost savings or revenue generation, and how much? So
Sure.
think of it this way: like by keeping up to date on the platform, I was able to provide, timely strategic advice that saved the day. Well, why don't I just talk about the time I saved the day?
Gotcha.
You
Yep,
see what I mean?
I do. Thanks.
It's kind of like I got up this morning and I decided to have a positive mental outlook. And then I realized there's two ways I can describe value. It wasn't my positive mental outlook that matters. It's the fact that the outcomes matter, right?
Got it.
Okay. So this is kind of like hiding the value a little bit too. So troubleshooting issues for end users with baseline out of box configured customized function. So if you're like, think about this, like, let's just assume everything that you do, configuration or customization, let's just say right out the gate, that's going to be $10,000 of cost. Are they just wheeling up a dump truck full of money and just saying, hey, just do the configurations and customizations all day? We got all the money in the world, man. Just do it. You're only doing it because somebody needed it. And that need was justified past some gates that justified the cost of your time to do them. And that's the exciting part for business. Right? That's the really exciting part. So again, right up to here, we're still dealing with Azeem of the undefined ServiceNow expertise, right? But if it was something like, we deployed SecOps and vulnerability to save this and that, again, now I have the type and scale, because the goal is like, I want to have that ultra super clear. So I just put you in the interview pile, get that interview taken care of. On day one, you start. I'm not pouring energy into you to make sure that you're valuable to me. You're just being valuable to me because I've put you in the right spot. Okay. So all of these ones are they're in the same family. Like I enhance the functionality. I have experience developing applications. I've built integrations. I collected business requirements and documented. Again, these are all like, what are these in the hierarchy of interest? Activities, right? But every time you did these things, you deployed a solution, ostensibly because the solution was valuable. Okay. So talk to me about the value of the solution. Interact, just like collaboration, just like facilitation. Interact is one of those things. Like we all interact. That's not the verb you. Is that making sense, Azeem?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's also verb inconsistency here with you've got some past tense and present tense. Do you ever factor that in, Robert?
Sometimes I do leave a lot of room for like grammar and like ultra precise grammar just because like I'm a human being and I pick up on it. Yeah, it doesn't hurt to have somebody edit specifically for grammar and spelling. But I think if you can load up on the XYZs, that goes a long way against everything else. Yeah. That being said, though, I did have one ServiceNow partner that wanted to have me recruit for them. And it was funny. They sent me this like huge document about how they do their selection process and what they wanted me to do. And they were like, please immediately discount with prejudice everyone who has any spelling, grammar, or formatting mistakes. But the hilarious thing was the email that they used to give me the instruction had all kinds of formatting and grammar mistakes in it. It was hilarious. I'm like, come on, man. Like,
yeah, practice what you preach for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know what I mean? Imagine giving up the opportunity to interview a CTA or a CMA because they used an Oxford comma or they just, they made any kind of grammatical mistake somewhere in the pages and pages and pages of stuff that come along with it.
Well, why you got to hate on Oxford? I would actually be like, oh, that is an Oxford comma. You're in for the interview. But I like that side of things a lot too. So that's why I brought it up.
All right. Sorry, Azeem. We'll get back to you here.
Yeah.
Facilitation and anything meetings is ultra super low value. Upgrading and patch management. This goes back to, and I get to it here. I have this thing called the SWP, the so what protocol. Upgrade and patch management. So what? How would I know that went well? Because God help me, I have been on upgrades that were the most uncomfortable months of my life. because everything appeared to go well. We did UAT, we moved to prod, but gosh darn it, I was responsible for upgrade and patch management. Okay. This speaks to the same thing about like I keep up to date. I have experience with ServiceNow releases from Calgary to Vancouver, you and like 10,000 other people, but why is it special for you? And I think I'll dare to say that there are far more inspirational stories of dragon slayings in your repertoire than you've been here since Calgary. Okay, so you basically here you're kind of trying to showcase a deeper technical savvy. Not everyone is able to deal with UI macros. That's when a lot of ServiceNow developers kind of check out. That's too complicated, too customized. But you're showcasing, I got this. But you're missing the context of why it mattered. Why did it, like, usually people would stray away from that because it's complicated and complication is always harder to support. So what was the solution and why did it matter, right? SWP, so what protocol? Okay, this is just feature labeling. Again, it's way better to write a story about how the combination of components mattered than naming the component. I know there's a lot of, well, what if it's an AI searching for me and don't I have to have every single name of every single thing in ServiceNow? And it's kind of like I don't know when it comes to applicant tracking systems, right? Who knows what the AI is prioritizing? Again, I optimize for getting a resume in front of a human being. Even if you get through an ATS, a human being is still going to look at this thing, and if they can't make sense of what was the value provided, it's not that they're going to put you in the no or maybe file. You're just not making their imagination work for you. And your competition is mostly this, right? So I got people that ask me to do resume reviews. Maybe they got a year of ServiceNow experience, and it's always like this for years and years and years of all the times I've been evaluating candidates. This is like the most common thing that the resume is articulated around. Business rules, client scripts, UI policies, UI scripts, script includes, flow designer, legacy workflow, blah, 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 as per requirement. But it's like, I don't know. I don't even know if you understood what you did for your customer. So already I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm probably going to have to tell them exactly what to do because I don't know if I can put them solo with a customer to understand their business case, to understand what it is that they need, and then build something to ensure that that customer's outcomes are delivered. Yeah? Okay. Again, I'm sorry. It probably sounds like a broken record at this point. There's also this idea, like if you want to just solidify the metaphor in your head, like how do you know that the sculptor is a good sculptor? Is it the way they talk about their tools? No, it's you see a picture of the statue of David and you're like, dang, that dude was a good sculptor. And I don't know if he was in there with chisels or sandpaper or both, but I don't care. Look at the results. Okay. All right. Just a quick note on manage. Do you ever watch the comic Dilbert? Okay. Look up Dilbert in Google and read some of them. And the reason Dilbert took off is because it precisely highlighted the disconnect between management and the people who actually get it done. Okay, management is often is assigned as much or more often than it is earned, and everybody knows the story. Everybody has been the person who succeeded in spite of management. So management as a verb is not a high value verb unless it was the management that brought it all together and delivered the value. Like I took a team of people who had never met each other, didn't like each other, under circumstances that everybody was chafing under, and I managed the team to this result. That might be something, but management in and of itself doesn't project a story of value delivery. Okay, this again is going to be broken record a little bit. Led and own the ITSM mission, vision, values, and outcomes. You might say you were the strategic leader of ITSM, but show me how the needle moved. Was your vision and your mission, like, did your mission accomplish the vision? Was the vision worth having? Did it improve things the way you wanted to? This shows promise. This is where you do the so what protocol, and it's better to just give an example of how this was done versus describing the class of the thing that was done.
Just
Right?
interject here. 10-minute
Yep.
time check. So,
We'll be good.
okay, cool.
So like delivered results and key business issues. Okay, what is a key business issue? I'm thinking a key business issue is something where it's like revenue or cost will be adversely affected if this thing goes wrong. And if that's the case, talk about that. Talk about the time we narrowly avoided, like, I don't know if you guys were affected. AT&T had a massive national outage yesterday. Tens of thousands of people were out of service for most of the day. Like, imagine being the person who narrowly avoided that. Whew, came in clinch, and this almost happened. Oh, I solved that. So, specifics versus abstraction. This again, formulate, publish, and reinforce ITSM policies to meet business objectives. Name one, right? Just one example that it says the same thing. Management of ITSM services budget. Okay. Lots of people manage budgets. Not lots of people manage them well. Okay, so here you're talking about your activities made sure that your compliance, quality, and performance and value. But if you did provide that, tell me what you provided. Imagine you built a compliance framework on ServiceNow such that your next SOX audit took 1/10 as long. That's weeks and weeks and weeks of added productivity to the organization. Right now, nobody's dumpster diving through Excel sheets to prove that they were the right person to approve the right thing, blah, 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 all that, all those different compliance frameworks. So, like, this is rich, fertile ground for delivering serious value. So actually get to the value. Yeah. Okay, this one is kind of like the prioritization of the method over the outcomes that the method is supposed to achieve. So is the most important thing that people adhere to Scrum methodology, or is the most important thing that Scrum methodology got us to a better outcome faster? Right? Okay, it's just on repeat from here. Okay, but there, as I go further, there's kind of this idea of in marketing, there's a term called slay your darlings. There's all kinds of stuff that you want to say, but in a 30-second commercial, you just don't have the time to say it. And if you're on YouTube, it's a 5-second commercial. So you have to basically weigh, and this is why I really like you making a list of XYZs written casually, often in notepads. So you don't think that you're writing resumes, right? And you've got to just really slay the things that aren't the best knockout punches, highlight reel stuff. Mike Tyson had a career of just blowing people's faces to smithereens. But when they show, you know what I mean? When they show the highlight reels, it's only 2 or 3 of them that make the cut. And this is super important because your resume is at 4 pages. I will never read past 2 pages. Ever. Even if you've got me slightly, like, if you've got me kind of like, oh, that's really interesting. I get to 2 pages and I'm like, sorry, it's somebody else's turn now. Okay. So basically be just super cutthroat, rip stuff out. You don't even have to, like, I understand you've been with FundServe for a long time. You don't necessarily need to make these distinctions between, as the ITSM manager versus the IT operations lead. Each of these could be a bullet point of your best, most robust, high power knockout punch. Okay, remember, highlight reel, not biography. A biographer is going to be like, and then what did you do? And then what did you do? And then what did you do? Okay, so we're almost there. The last part, education, you suddenly change the format and it makes it a lot more vertical. Like, there's probably like half a line for every line. So this could probably be squeezed down. This could have brought you to 3 pages just on its own. So make them bullet points. I would say you don't need to include the version, and you don't need to include the year. Save yourself some time for keeping adjusting your resume too. Like I got my CSA. When did I get my CSA? Like the second year it existed. you know? And so the year isn't so now in higher education, they might want to know when did you get your Master of Finance, right? And to that end, it's usually a better principle to keep your highest attainment at the top. So I would go master's, bachelor's, then do my CISs, and then anything else that you think needs to be on there. You might even consider strapping your sun and your HP certs and your data center. Maybe, I don't know, your sun and your HP.
So just calling that out,
Flip a coin.
I provided that guidance, so
Oh, okay.
had the other stuff at the top. So this is
Oh,
where,
okay.
I said path A, and now Robert, the expert,
I get it.
is what
No,
we're going to
I
listen
mean,
to. No, I just want to make sure that we all know that I'm not the authority on this, so that's why I'm deferring to you, Robert, as the expert.
okay. I didn't remember your bachelor, so I think the idea though is you're trying to get maximum visibility. Make sure they see the ServiceNow stuff, right? But if you do it in this bullet point fashion, I would even go so far as to comma delimit it. So uh, and then I do. You see what I mean? I just crank them out in one line, and then it's just my eye has not had to move. I definitely didn't have to scroll, and I get myself closer to that 2-page cutoff. And then lastly, volunteer experience. I know why people do this. It's like, let's take a wild swing, see if this gets me enough rapport building to make the difference between the the interview pile versus a don't interview pile. I guarantee you I've made that decision already by here. Okay, guarantee it. So if you're way under 2 pages, your choice, man. But if you're over 2 pages, don't like do everything you can to get under 2 pages. And I will say the point of the resume is to get the interview. In the interview is where you're going to do all that person to person rapport building, right? Let them know what a mensch you are, you know? But that's more of an interview thing than a resume thing. All right, so we got a few minutes left, so I think I'll just stop talking and we can we can do questions or whatever you need, Chris.
Sure. So, it's more of a guided experience and we let people listen in. So think of this as kind of like, hey, we're lifting the curtain and helping you get to this understanding. So, I've had a couple little direct message chats going on in the background just to kind of help out, but this was great. We covered everything I think that we wanted to. So Azeem, how did it feel for you to go through this?
So I think last 2 weeks or so about like resume, it's like very enlightening and I think it's like shaking up my whole core in a way
Mm-hmm.
that what I thought that I had the best of, like, obviously if you do not have somebody review or have a second look, you think that you have the best resume of the world. So I think great points, and I really like how Robert suggested that XYZ methodology, like activities or responsibility, which and I think I blame on some of the recruiters too, because when they call you, they say put this from the job description, put this from the job description, and you ultimately have this mindset that all those responsibility, if they are in your resume, then your resume looks really good. But I think this was great, really great,
Sure. So
really
let's
thankful.
talk just a bit about that. So when you're coming in and working with a recruiter, and we're going to have a session on that later on, their focus is usually driven towards a specific role. So they're going to provide advice to land that specific role. This is more on your overall journey, and casting the wider net is always going to be the best outcome for you, deliver the best outcome. You're going to catch the most fish with the bigger net, but I'm not supporting, taking all the fish out of the
Actually,
ocean.
in that, if I may, Chris, I know we're kind of at time here, but
Yeah.
in the spirit of casting that wide net, as soon as you get your resume worked out with the feedback we've got, just plop that resume into your LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn summary should be your resume summary. The experiences you list under every position on your LinkedIn, make them the exact same bullet points as the ones that are on your resume. Okay, because your resume is what I call an active measure. In submarine warfare, there's like active and passive sonar. Okay. A resume is like an active. I have to be there to hand it off. I am going to give you this resume because we're chatting on LinkedIn, right? But on LinkedIn, that's a passive measure. People you don't even know can discover that by accident and be super jazzed about finding you. And once you get your XYZ protocol stuff in there, they will be super jazzed because you got a ton of really cool, promising material and a ton of dragon slain that you should be talking about.
Awesome. Okay, so with that, please feel free to reach out to Robert directly. I hope that's okay through LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
And you can get this help specific to you. He will go through all of the guides. It is a paid service, so please make sure that you're aware of that before you contact him. And I think everybody can kind of see the value that it generates. Now, I have gone through again this journey with him, with someone else who's not part of the podcast part of things. And that specific help that they received was invaluable. And he went even further than what we can get in this 1 hour session. So just know that this was a taste of everything that Robert can do to help your resume stand out and land that next role. So thank you all so much for joining. Thank you to Azeem for, again, continuing the journey. Thank you so much to Robert for being a part of this as well. Cannot express my gratitude enough for that. I definitely will owe you drinks or dinner at Knowledge, if we bump into each other.
Can't wait, man. I just found out I got a Knowledge Pass this year, so.
Ooh, nice.
Love to,
I too am also in some discussions with the presenting team on something.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. Again, appreciate it. I will post this on my LinkedIn with no password. So just a heads up on that, and appreciate it. We will see you at the next one.
Thanks for the opportunity, Chris. And Azeem, can't wait to see V2.
Can't
wait. Later.